So welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon from where you're based. It's a great pleasure to launch this workshop on behalf of the Friends of Social Business. So I will just say a bit of words about this program and these workshops from the Friends of Social Business. I'm here also with Peter Spiegel that you see as the head of the organization of the Friends of Social Business, and you see that this program is being supported by the Yunus and You Foundation and the Deutsche Postcode Lottery. And myself, I have two hats, so I'm supporting like a Friends of Social Business on behalf of Zukunft Gründen. It's a venture studio here in Germany, based in Germany, to support impact startups. So the focus is really on social business today and in the next sessions. So we are experts on social business and future skills. So we will. The idea is that with this series of brief workshops, we will give you a bit of an insight in how do we use social business to fight climate change, and how future skills at the same time can really enhance and empower entrepreneurs further to fight climate change and support communities which are being affected by climate change. Couple of words on the project. So we run these projects a bit around the world. So this is a really focused, as I said, on climate change. And the way we work is usually we engage the community. So we reach out to various communities and we really try to engage them in our programs. We have capacity building programs like these workshops where we go deep into the specific concepts, and we train entrepreneurs on specific issues and in this change, indeed, how to fight climate change with the social business entrepreneurship. And then we have a part of mentoring. So out of the people that joined the workshops, we have selected, there were a lot of applications. We have selected 20 entrepreneurs from all over the world, I have to say, that we will mentor really on further developing their climate solutions and their solutions which are working with local communities. So for the ones who joined a bit later, feel free to, so whenever you have questions, we're going to have a question and a Q&A session at the end of this workshop today. But feel free to, type your questions in the chat, and we will then answer them on the spot or at the end. Your mics are blocked for the sake of noises in the room, but we will unmic everyone. And sorry, I forgot to mention one other person fundamental is Sabir Azan that you see also here from the account of Peter Spiegel. But Sabir has been working on these workshops. He has been developing them together with me. So thank you, Sabir.
It's my pleasure, Mary, to work with you. And it's really nice to see everyone here today.
Okay, so we were going to have a workshop today. It's going to be two workshops actually. So we're going to have a break at around 11. With this, the first workshop is going to be with me. I'm going to introduce myself in a moment. The second workshop is going to be with Dr. Enayati, who's the managing director of the TwoWings Foundation. And on Wednesday, we're going to have two other workshops. And those two workshops are going to be focused more on the future skills applied to social business entrepreneurship. And those are going to be with Professor Dr. Annabel Tenes van Aartburg, CEO from Sustain Plus, and with Dr. Anne Pechstein, who is co-founder of Future Skill Organization. And both of them have been working very closely with Peter Spiegel, that you see here today, with the School of Future Skills. But you will hear more about it next on Wednesday. Yeah, so this is the flow of the workshop that I was telling you, and you find everything also on our landing page. So workshop one, let's start after a bit this a brief introduction. Let's start with the workshop of today. So from my side, I've been working on social business, focus on social business for the past 3 years. And the topic that we will tackle today is really social business. So we will dig a bit into the concept just to make clear for those who are not familiar with that, what is social business and how we work with in climate affected areas, and in particular, how we create effective social businesses, starting from analyzing really problems in a systemic way. That's going to be the focus of the first workshop with me this morning. About myself, I am a growth manager, but after studying business, etc., I decided that to call myself a regenerative growth manager. So in the sense that whenever I mentor social businesses on growing, we always, of course, take into consideration the sustainable aspect of the organization, but we never lose the sight on how to grow in a regenerative way, which is good for the environment and the community, and is actually regenerative. But I wanted to bit before getting into the workshop, I wanted to feel a bit the room and who is here today. So if you can write in the chat, where are you writing from? Oh, sorry. Where are you from? Oh, I see here the chat. So Germany, we have Uganda, Janine from Cape Town. Good morning. We have Berlin, Michel from Nigeria. Hello, Michel. Heri Gumbe from Burundi, so nice. Genova, Italy. Hello, Ruby. Winnie from Kenya. Hello. Alex from Cameroon. Sunaya from Delhi, India. Lundi from, hello, Lundi. Oh my God, from Madagascar, but I know you're in Miami, so it's pretty early there. Peter from Berlin. Merezi, hello, from Uganda. Okay, so we have quite some countries here this morning. That's great to see so many people. We see a lot of people from Uganda. We have a majority of Uganda here. Hello, Jonathan. Okay, so nice. So feel free anytime, as I said, if you have questions, type them in the chat. And then we will see whether we answer on the spot or we answer at the end. So feel free to interrupt as well the flow. Great. So we didn't mention one thing. We talked about Yunus Foundation. So yes, we are part of all the organizations that were created around Professor Yunus. You might have heard about him a lot in the last weeks. Maybe you already knew, of course, him before. He got the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006 for creating the concept of microcredit, and together with the Grameen Bank. So that's how our social business movement, so to say, started. But from that experience, really, you will see, and you will see it also later, we're going to talk about it, there was a really a world, a Grameen world that started, putting always at the center poor people from rural areas in Bangladesh. And from there, they tried really to understand, okay, how can we solve their problems, which is not only poverty, lack of resources, but all the kind of problems that they have in their life. And in the past years, our work has been really being focused on how can we achieve a world of 3.0. So 0 poverty, 0 unemployment, and 0 net carbon emissions. And in particularly in the last years, we have been focusing a lot on the environmental side and how to create climate-based solutions and supporting communities which are affected by climate change. And the thing is that what Professor Yunus always says is that we have the technology. People are per se, everybody can be an entrepreneur, and people want to change things. But of course, we can't, the governments will play a major role, but we can't wait for the government to act. And therefore, social business comes into the game. And we're working a lot on a lot of the advocacy as well with governments to push social businesses and social innovations in various countries. So what we're going to show you today is a bit how social business works. I will just briefly review the principles of social business, the role of social business in climate affected area. And for those of you who are already familiar with system thinking, we will just make a small exercise to understand how to analyze problems with system thinking and a social business perspective. I just check here and there the chat to see if there's questions. Okay, I move forward. So here are like really the principles of social business as they were written down originally from Professor Yunus. And you will see that the first one, and that's one of the most important for us, is that the business objective is to solve a problem that can be overcome poverty, or provide access to education to communities where there's no access, limited access to education, provide health access, technology access, and support the environment. So solve any problem that is threatening people and society. So the objective is not to maximize profit, and that's really our core. The second aspect, though, is that in doing this, we are not a no-profit. So we still make profit, but this is not to be given back to the investors. So our models still need to be financially and economically sustainable, because the third principle is that the investors only get the investment amount only. So when they invest, they only get this investment, but they don't get dividends. And because of this, social business in the years has been a bit, excluded, of course, from financial markets, where investors are interested only in getting of course, earning money. And that's why we really worked on the sustainability of the business models to make that. For us is really important because of this, to have really sustainable business models. And when the amount, of course, is so we do pay to investors the amount which is being invested, but the profits of the company then, so they just stayed into the company and they are reinvested to continue increasing the impact and to make the social business grow. Of course, principle 5, gender sensitive and environmentally conscious. So we are always very aware of the environment when we build our business model. And of course, from a gender sensitive perspective as well. And another important aspect is that in social business, the workforce needs to get the market wage. So the wage, which is of the level of the market, if not better conditions, because we want to eradicate the idea that if you work in social business, social enterprises or no profit, usually the trend is that you get paid less, right? You get it's not an attractive place where to work. So in social business, it's important that we keep conditions which are relevant for the market, because then we can attract talents as well in the social business. And 7, last but not least, is do it with joy. So it's very important because of the difficulties in working with impact, the lack of finances. The conditions are so hard that if you don't really have a positive attitude into it and you fall in love with your problem that you're trying to solve, and you surround people that have the same positivity and commitment, it's hard to stay in the game. So we are very aware of that. So we decided to put it in our principles. So just to summarize it a bit, is a social business is a traditional business. So it has a clear vision and mission. You have actionable strategy, measurable goals, a sustainable business model. We work to achieve effectiveness and efficiencies in the way we manage the social business. Usually social businesses, the legal aspect sometimes is a bit it depends on countries, right? So some countries have a social business legal entity forms. But in some other countries, for example, they're not. And usually social businesses are incorporated as normal businesses, because we want to pay taxes as first-class citizens and we want to do things as normal businesses. Because for us, social business has to be the new way of doing business. But then, of course, the two things that differ, as I was saying, is first of all, the social goal, the social environmental goal that we're trying to solve, is at the core of our business. That's why we were created for. And the profits remain into the company. So they are reinvested to make it grow, and they're not given back to the investors. Summarized, this is what we do. And the reason why the Grameen model per se and social business are super important in this a climate change scenario is indeed that because we really put the problem at the core, we really focus on solving a problem. So we're going to really build a sustainable model around it that is really that allows us to get the resources to continue working towards that goal. Without, like, for example, like worrying too much about the lack of investments. Of course, like there's always the worry because investments are never enough. But because we build sustainable business models, we can continue to work in effective ways towards solving a specific problem that we're focusing on. And the second aspect is that because with this experience that we got from Bangladesh, and then like the model, and through our international organizations spread all over the world, the model really spread. We are able we were able to develop specific methodologies that look at problems from a global and to a local perspective, and we were able to really work with several teams around the world to find solutions in a local and in the global context. So this is, if we want, what sets us as social business movement apart in a nutshell. So the idea now is that I wanted to maybe guide you through an example, and we show you how, for example, a Grameen company, a social business, would think and would act to solve a specific problem. And then we will have some time. I'm just looking at the time. Okay, yes, we will have some time for you to think about your personal solution that you're working on, and you can apply the way in which we think in systems to your own solutions. And then we will have time to exchange about it, and you can share how it went if you have questions. So as I'm going to speak now in the second session, so feel free to start thinking about your own, to make comparisons with your own solutions and how you would approach that. And then we can you're going to have time to sit down and do the same exercise for yourself. Yeah, we have any questions until now? I don't see the chat. Okay, I just saw. Okay, good. And I proceed. So Grameen Shakti is, as I was telling you, right? When the Grameen Bank was created, then there were a lot of other Grameen companies that started. And Grameen means rural. So the characteristic of all of these Grameen companies is that they were trying to support poor people in rural areas. So, and really trying to solve specific problems that they had. And in particular, one aspect that Grameen Shakti is focused on is really in providing access to energy in rural communities in Bangladesh. And they have been extremely, and of course, we mean renewable energy solutions. So that's what they focused on. So, and they don't stop there, because their final objective is eventually to really achieve a social economic development in these rural areas, to empower women, creating green jobs and alleviate poverty, and eventually also reduce CO2 emissions. So you see, whenever we provide solutions, we never think about one aspect only, giving access to energy, but we think about all the different consequences that are going to happen and that need to happen in the system in which these people we help are inserted. With this approach, Grameen Shakti was able to distribute over almost 2 million solar home systems. And this corresponds to 30% of the total world solar home systems applied. So they reached over 12 million customers only in rural areas in Bangladesh. They distributed also more than 1 million clean cook stoves. And now they've been focusing more on creating these biogas plants. I was in Bangladesh more than 1 year ago, and we visited these rural areas, and we could really see the way in which these all systems work. So all of and not only solar home systems, but also usually they provide with the same household all of these solutions. And the way they work is really in an integrated systems, also with other entities. For example, they started from households, and they say, okay, that household, they have, but they're running an economic activity, but because they don't have energy, that economic activity after some time needs to stop. So we're going to put solar panels there. With that solar panels, the activity can continue. Then they notice that in the household of this, in this business owner, the small business owner, they didn't have clean cook solutions. So they provided clean cook stoves. And often then, because these people also had, for example, their like little gardens, they were creating biogas plants within the house. So usually they are applied in a systematic way. And in the same way, for example, I saw, but wait a moment, I see people are sick. They go to the rural clinics. And the rural clinics cannot operate because we're going to see this a bit more in detail later, but because the all energy infrastructure of the country is not efficient. So there are like certain hours in which there is electricity, and this cannot happen for a rural clinic. So they provided solar home systems also to rural clinics and other institutions, and so on and so on. So I'm trying to change the slide. Sorry. Yes. So let's see now. I already anticipated a bit of like the kind of system that needs to get to be analyzed, but we can go a bit more into detail into the theory. Whenever like we coach our entrepreneurs, and whenever we run our incubation programs, and I already emphasized this, but we always really focus on the problem. So it's whenever we think about problems, we tend to automatically think about the solutions immediately. I will create a clean energy solution for this community, but we don't spend enough time in really focusing on the problem. So it's very important that we switch our mindset, and we wanted to show this with this aspect in Chinese. The word problem crisis is the same as opportunity. So you really need to shift your mind and focus on the problem. Even Einstein actually was saying that if you have an hour to solve a problem, you would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and then 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. Because once you really understand the problem and you're able to see a very complex problem in a very simple way, then you're able to think about simple solutions that can solve complex problems. But maybe you might be asking yourself, okay, but what is system thinking really? There's not a clear definition for it, in a sense that is a set of techniques, is a way in which we structure a mindset to understand a system. So really badly put is the way in which you're able to decompose a very complex system into a way which is simplified and clear to understand. And it's like a way of thinking. So whenever you think about problems, you try to really think about the connections to one specific problems and how one element is impacting another element. So thinking a mindset in that sense, but there are also some techniques and some methodologies that have been developed to do so. And I will present you one of these methodologies. And then we can go through this methodology to really taking into consideration the case of Grameen Shakti and see how they applied this methodology to understand how to structure then their solution. This methodology is based on these 6 steps. You start from a problem and then you arrive to a strategy to provide a systemic solution, understanding where you focus on the system. Whenever you start from a problem, though, a lot of times what we see is that people start too big. So they take problems at a level which is too wide. And when that happens, it's very hard then to cut it down and find solutions which are really effective, because the problem is just too wide and the system then gets even complex, right? So we always invite entrepreneurs to choose an abstraction level of this problem, which is a bit more narrowed down. So we always notice whenever, for example, there is entrepreneurs from the global south, for example, living in communities and they want to solve the problems of that community. That is a very good level of abstraction to start with, because you start with a small, with a problem which is focused in a specific community, and you're able to observe that problem very specifically. And then once you analyze that problem, you can see whether this problem is extended and is affecting more communities or like a wider region, for example. That is the best way to start doing social business. But of course, there's different levels depending also on resources, etc. Then you have identified the level in which you want to understand your problem, an important step is to identify the stakeholders which are living in this system. So all the not only, for example, the people you want to target, your beneficiaries or potential customers, but also many other stakeholders that they might seem maybe detached from the problem, but they might have an interest and play a part in it. And once you identified all these stakeholders, list what are the interests of these stakeholders, what is their interest in the problem at stake. And once you have these first three steps, you're able to create a first causal loop. What we mean by a causal loop, it defines the connection between one aspect and the cause-effect relationship with another aspect or player. So you're able to identify really how the problem is developing within the system and which stakeholders are involved in the development in this causal loop. This causal loop then becomes a diagram, because then you create new connections to other kind of problems. So and eventually you're able to really understand and categorize, for example, okay, who are the targets, who needs to be involved when I specifically create a solution, who are influencing factors, be it stakeholders or things happening. So it's a lot of talking now, but we're going to go into the details, and I'm going to show you now a clear example with the Grameen Shakti case. It started in the 90s. Sorry, I see a question, I think. I see somebody writing. Please, will the slides be... Yes, the slides will be shared. So no worries. We will also share the recording of this workshop, so you will have it with you. No worries. I know it's complex, but now we're going to get a bit more into the theory, so we can work on this together. So we are in Bangladesh, and in the 90s, 45% of the population had no access to electricity. And this, of course, was having consequences, as I was saying before, because at economic and social level, especially the people in rural area were affected by really high levels of poverty. Health, education were also, and businesses in general were also being affected by this. So in the years, of course, in Bangladesh, an energy system was built, but electricity is 85% of this electricity is generated using fossil fuels, and primarily natural gas. So Bangladesh invested heavily on creating an energy infrastructure, but this was not coming from renewable energy sources. It was a very vulnerable structure, because it was really dependent on the fluctuations in the fossil fuel markets. And at the same time, you have increasing pressure, because with rapid economic growth, rising of population, there was an increasing demand for electricity, but the existing infrastructure was not able to satisfy all of these demand. So usually the situation would be that electricity, for example, was running at specific times in specific areas. So there were, and especially after dark, there was no electricity, and all activities had to stop suddenly. So when we understand, try to now cut down the problem, right? We see specific aspects. So as I said, there is an inconsistent power supply that is hampering the economic growth especially of like the rural areas and smaller business owners, you have like a vulnerable populations, which is, as I said, is being disproportionately affected because this is affecting mainly indeed the poorer people, like part of the population. The infrastructure is inadequate, so it cannot solve this problem. And then you have further, in addition to that, climate change that is exacerbating these problems because, for example, like you might have seen, like very sadly also these days, there has been like huge floods in Bangladesh. And these floods were also affecting and further like affecting the energy infrastructure, and it is still. So when we cut down, for example, this problem, right? You can see we put here some levels, but we can really identify many other levels of the problem. So you have a very wide first aspect that you can consider is the dependency on fossil fuel, for example, usage. Then there is the other layer, which is there is not enough infrastructure to produce green energy. But you see, first you're already thinking into solution. And then this like kind of problem statement is still too wide. So we decided, okay, let's cut it down. Let's cut on a specific problem. What is like affecting the problem affecting local communities? Education and health is being like affected by the fact that there's not enough energy and energy is not accessible. That can be a level to narrow it down. Further narrow it down is like going, as I was saying before, at people like level and a specific like people problem, and that's where like the core of the problem is, so that people with low income and transportation inaccessibility in the sense like so really like far from, for example, the cities, they face challenges in accessing energy, and so we focus on this last point to understand then like how to analyze the system around Grameen Shakti. Second step, we analyze the stakeholders, right? So we started from the household in the villages. And I was saying before, these households usually had small local businesses, right? Then when we analyze the village structure, you have NGOs that are working, for example, with the poorer communities. You have local government offices that might play a role into this, right? You have rural clinics, you have religious institutions, you have educational institutions, you have mosques and temples. So there's a lot of parties that can play a role in this system, and you just like note them down. So I remind, as I'm going through this, like you can start thinking about your own system around your own solutions, and like we can exchange afterwards. Now, what are the interests of these stakeholders? So the local communities, for example, the households per se, they need electricity, of course, for their daily household activities, right? And they can do that mainly during the day, for sure. But they need electricity. I mean, they need to cook. They need electricity, for example. I mean, the kids, they come back home, they need to study. There's no electricity usually in the night. So they do need electricity, not only for their household activities, but also really for their family. Small local businesses, they need to stop to work when it gets dark because there is no electricity, and this doesn't allow them to increase profits for their families. You have hospitals. For hospitals and like rural clinics, it was extremely challenging that they had to interrupt the care of patients because there was like there were electricity shortages. And I experienced personally when I was visiting one of these digital clinics from another Grameen organization in Bangladesh last year. There were so many patients. They were running tests. They were running diagnostics, and suddenly the electricity stopped. But because they had Grameen Shakti solar panels, they could continue the operations without any problems. And of course, I mean, for them as well as for, of course, the local community, small business owners, there is a big cost limitation, right? They need to keep costs at their limit. The private public sector, of course, and so at the same, they were facing the same problem, as well as educational and religious institutions, that they had to interrupt service because because of these shortages. And not only because, I mean, after some working hours, you cannot use electricity anymore, but because it's getting dark, but also because specifically in some times when the pressures on the infrastructures went even higher, like it would really mean that in each region, on each area, there would be maybe electricity for 2 hours and then no more. So this was really creating big problems. And Sabir, I call you in the room if you feel to add something, or something that I said is like not precise enough. Please feel free to interrupt me with no problem. Okay. So now, let's get into the practice now, and let's understand, let's create, I mean, this is a very easy causal loop, what we said. So the fact that the local communities have like they have like less electricity, they don't have access to electricity, is having an impact on small local businesses. So they can't maximize, they can work less, they can't maximize their working hours. And this is increasing also poverty in the area. So this is really having like a social and economic effect on area. And this social, and the fact that people are poorer, this makes clean energy even more inaccessible. So and it becomes like a side demand. I see somebody wrote. Okay, sorry, Sabir. Thank you. Okay. And this is the first feedback loop, and is actually like creating a vicious circle already, as we see. Now, if we expand and we put the other players into the system, how are they affected? And we see that the fact that clean energy is becoming inaccessible is creating also problems for the hospitals, because they can't afford to get clean energy. Because usually in these rural areas, like rural clinics have very limited resources, and this creates problems like poor health services in rural areas. And at the same time, this same aspect is also creating like negative effects on education. So really creating, in the end, if we could continue this circle in a way that it would even push further poverty in the area, it would even push forward, for example, like health problems in the area. So from this, then Grameen Shakti was created. And the reason why I wanted to show you, I mean, this is just a very old, actually, picture of Grameen organizations. But I think nowadays there are even more that were created, because literally from every problem, a solution was created. So Grameen Shakti was created, then the Grameen healthcare digital services were created to further push healthcare services in the rural areas. Then they noticed, for example, that not enough doctors, and like there was a lack in nurses in rural areas, and in all Bangladesh, they created a Grameen Caledonian College to see the profession of nurses in a new way, and to involve more and more people in becoming nurses in the country. So it's really like from one aspect of the system, a Grameen solution was created. And this gives you like a bit an insight. We can share a bit more material afterwards, but how really, if you focus on understanding systems, you can really get to create solutions that work on the system and can really bring like communities and like they have really social and economic positive consequences at a wider like a scale. And today we really believe that, I mean, like all in the years, the developments that Bangladesh went through is also because of all of these Grameen organizations and the work that was really done involving millions and millions of people. I will stop now talking. I see a question from Tabaza. Do you work directly with rural and refugees in Africa to benefit from your services? So if I'm correct, there are no Grameen organizations in Africa. I know that now there are more microcredit organizations that were created. There is one that was created actually in DRC recently, together with the Virunga Park, and there is one that was created in South Africa. To bring the model, so far we have been running more programs in the past years in the region, especially we started with East Africa. And now we are like supporting more organizations to bring social business and the Grameen models in more like parts. Sorry, I'm just change it. But so like feel free to get in touch, and in case we can connect you with some organizations that we know are working on specific aspects. Okay, so I see the question of Janine. Feel free to raise your hand if you want to just talk. We're gonna go now. We have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, let's say, to get a bit more practical. So now it's your time to think about your own problem that you see and really apply the six steps. So I let you work on this for like 10 minutes. Even 5 if you feel like, maybe not. Let's do 10, and then we have 5 minutes to just wrap it up, close this first part of the workshop, and then we take a little break before the next one. So off you go. If you have like questions as you work on that, the first step is pretty hard always, to understand the abstraction level, the level of the problem that you want to focus on. Meanwhile, I feel like Sabir is communicating, right? Sabir, I think everybody can unmute themselves now if they want to. I see in the meantime a question from Tambaza. I will touch upon that shortly. Okay. Can I get a bit of a feeling? How is the exercise going? Does somebody wants to share? Feel free to unmute yourself.
I can share.
Yes. Hi, Janine.
Hello. So, in applying the mapping the system process, I've kind of got up until the point where I'm listing the stakeholders and their interests.
Mhm.
And just realizing how diverse those are, depending on who the stakeholder is and if they're a group, how much it can differ. So I'm now trying to just sort of break up my stakeholder groups so that I can like characterize their interest better for pulling that into they're creating the first causal loop.
Mhm.
That's where how far I've got at the moment, but it's a lot of writing, so it's quite nice to have it down.
Yeah. And what abstraction level did you choose?
So with the abstraction level, I struggled at first, and I realized that with our intervention, um, it's quite a specific problem that we're dealing with already. So I didn't need to try and cut out pieces because we've been working in this space for a year now, and I've just kind of assumed the abstraction level that I guess exist at. I don't know if that's a good way
Mhm.
to explain it. Um, yeah, luckily our problem I've just focused specifically on like our local like sort of country level market, and I haven't really looked internationally because that adds
Yeah.
a lot of um
So how did you state your problem?
yes. Well, I stated my problem, but in my brain. So because we've been working
Yeah, all good.
on developing our website at the moment, so I've been writing a lot about our problem. Would it be helpful for me to state my problem here?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Just to understand. Yeah.
yes, so the problem that we're working on is that we have a social business industry that's quite nascent in South Africa or in Southern Africa, and the impact organizations aren't at a point where they are able to hire young people, but they really require those voices in developing their solutions but then just not in a position really to hire young people and provide them with training and skills, and so they're only looking for sort of mid-career professionals while at the same time, young people in South Africa are really, really motivated and interested in working in social enterprises or the organizations that support social enterprises. But it's incredibly difficult to find a place in that. I mean, it took me about 5 years and with quite a lot of education. And so it takes a lot of privilege to get into the space. And so we're trying to sort of bridge that mismatch and find a way for it to be accessible, like an accessible career for young people. And also for it to be accessible for the impact organizations that we have in the country to hire young people and have young to create session and things like that.
Great. And when listing down stakeholders, did you then identify stakeholders that, for example, maybe before you were not really putting in your system?
So for us, that was the universities, because I mean the classic stakeholders are the young people, the impact organizations, whether that's a social enterprise, impact investor, accelerator, or whatever it may be. And our program team, but now I've included universities because it plays a big role. It's where a lot of the people in our program currently come from, and so I guess that's a level of abstraction really, because in the long term we don't just want to be hiring graduates, and so.
Yeah.
Looking at, okay, universities want their students to be employed. They want to be affiliated to like innovation and have material that they can use to raise funds or, motivate people with them. And so that's a new stakeholder that I've considered.
Because I'm asking this because I think it could be helpful then because you thought about it already, right? You have already your system in mind. I think it could be helpful that you just add other stakeholders which seem to be out of the system, for example, local governments or government at different levels. Or you might have, for example, like the normal businesses as well, for example. And then you might see, for example, that the reason I'm saying that because you might see that, for example, there might be an interest. I'm thinking, for example, in Germany, at least the government is really pushing for huge social innovation programs, right? Because this is impacting also the economy. So maybe there might be some things that you discover the government is interested in. Or, for example, you might see that companies would be interested in working with social businesses, or like they are facing the problem because there's a lot of students who don't want to work anymore for companies. I mean, there might be some other aspects that you see from other stakeholders, and there might be a way to identify new business models with different stakeholders as well. That's why we always invite to go beyond maybe what seems to be more closely related to your specific problem.
Thank you, Maria. That's great.
Yeah. I see a question from, thank you so much, Janine, for sharing. I think it was really good to see that you already identified your abstraction level, because that's the hardest part, as you rightly said. But then, I think it can be a good exercise then to continue. Thank you very much for sharing. I see a question from Jonathan. We still have 1 minute. Maybe I catch your question and then I also answer to Tambaza. My question is based on biogas and clean cooking stove, because my refugee-led organization will empower disadvantaged women and girls in making cooking stove. So what can we do to collaborate with Grameen Shak in order to accelerate job opportunities and at Naki Valley refugee camp? That's great. I think from our side, we can definitely, if you can share with us more information about your project, we can definitely try to see with the team of Grameen Shakti if they're running programs maybe in the area, and we can connect you. Absolutely. So thank you, Jonathan. And to answer to Tabaza, we in Uganda specifically, we know a foundation, the Ayabara Foundation. I know they're making, they do programs to fight poverty and unemployment. So we can maybe connect with them. There is a program that is being run. I don't know in which, if you work with specific refugee settings and settlements, we have one program, Bridging Gaps. They are one of our mentee here in this program, and they focus on giving a new model of community loans. There are specific community loans designed for particularly vulnerable communities, and they are working very well in the Bidi settlement in Uganda. So we can connect you maybe with their team unless you're already connected, because this could be interesting. Yes, thank you, Sabir, for writing down exactly Ayebare Foundation and Bridging Gaps microloans. Yeah. If you have any more questions, you saw our contacts. You have the contact of Sabir, so feel free to reach out to me or to Sabir. But we will stay here for a lot longer. So now we take a little break, and we start again at 11:15. Sabir.
So here now we take a 8, 9, 10 minutes break, and I think we can start again at 11:10.
11:10. Okay.
Because I see our speaker for the next part of the workshop is already here.
Yes. Okay, great.
Sarvenas. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can see her on the screen.
Hello. Great. Okay, so we take a little break, and then we're going to be back in 10 minutes, and we have our guest, Dr. Enayati, who is going to take you through the next session. Have a nice coffee, or like go to the toilet, drink some water. See you in a bit.
As masses of undernourished individuals who are overwhelmed by problems, who someone else needs to come and support them, but that we believe that every human being is like a mind full of gems and full of talents, full of potential, and that education is one of the means that can release this human potential. And so it's always really the human being who is in the center of all these projects and initiatives. I find that this is a very important message as well, that pursuing development is not conceived as modernization. There are theories in developmental sociology, also in German we say Entwicklungssoziologie, which say that development means modernization. But we think that modernization has also side effects, which often leads to disintegration of rural life, and it also fosters poverty in rural areas or urban slums. So although it is very well meant, that one thinks, okay, when you have a lot of infrastructure and if you modernize a place, that you should not underestimate all the side effects it can also have. So this is why all these projects, they are very much focused and have a balanced approach, and really see the human beings who live there as their own protagonists of their own progress. And so it's always very important to have consultation with the local population, because they can read reality and know best actually what is needed to have more progress in a region. I think that sometimes youth are a bit frustrated with the educational programs in the world because they have the feeling it's not relevant for their lives. So I think what all these projects have in common is that you're not seen as someone who is an empty glass and someone with more knowledge comes and pours some water in you, but it's more that you are an active participant in the generation and application of knowledge. And that means that all these programs are here to empower the people who are engaged in these programs, and they are seen as an active protagonist of their own progress, and also that they're a big contributor to this progress and not only a recipient of a project. And for example, often a technology is introduced which does not serve a community. So this is why when the local population is very much involved and in the center of all the endeavors, then they can also participate in generation of new knowledge or the application of existing knowledge. What is very important maybe we can go back to the slide before. Yeah, thank you. I think what is very important also when we think of TwoWings is that these two wings are also an analogy for the balance between science and the spiritual dimension of a human being. So science is really also in the heart of all these programs. So we do not see development as a modernization so that you can become a very high income country, but more that you have social economic development which serves the population which lives there. And it's very much focused on learning. And the role of science, for example, in agricultural activities is very much in the center. So because you have also you have a lot of knowledge which is not scientific based. And in agriculture, if you have a more methodical approach, like you really experiment which plants can grow there, what are the obstacles, and you have a more systematic way to implement all these activities, it is much more sustainable. Next slide, please. Yes, one aspect that has also been observed is sometimes structures are very centralized, and it helps a lot if you have also more region-specific structures to have these effective developments, so that the people who are involved can be more actively a part of it, and it's not something that from outside is imposed on them. Next slide, please. Yes, now to become more practical, we have shared with you the underlying principles and assumptions we have on the human nature. And now the story of Planting Hope. It's in an initiative that TwoWings is trying to learn more about. So maybe next slide. I think all of us are aware that environmental awareness is very much a link to community well-being. So this Planting Hope initiative is a global tree planting initiative where a local population is very much engaged in understanding that that through this awareness, also community building is fostered, and everyone in this region, for example, is involved. And I give you later a more concrete example. So we have two programs that are currently very active in this field, and we are very thankful that we can be of some assistance. One is transforming the environment in Colombia, and the other one is the environmental health in Zambia. And both of them are focused on reforestation, food security, and community engagement. And what I find very striking is that it involves all age groups. So it's something where children, youth, adults, and elderly can contribute. And I think this serves also very much in the community building process. Next slide, please. So the mission of Planting Hope is to collaborate with partners who are focused on this area and who are very much engaged in cultivating environmental responsibility and empower communities to adopt sustainable practices. And in transforming the environment, also parallel, you have also transformation of the community engaged, because a lot of values that apply to nature, how a plant grows, what is needed, like shelter, sun, water, is also the same what the community needs. Next slide, please. Yes, so one is the transforming the environment by Fundaec and Columbia. Fundaec is a foundation that over decades is very much committed in empowering through educational efforts, social and economic development, and they have a lot of different lines of actions. And one is environmentally, an environmental focus. And they have the objective that they want to support also the reforestation with many native species. So in this region, a lot of native plants and trees have been neglected. And so it's a contribution also for improving food security. So they very systematically, like in a methodical way, they researched which plants have been missing and can contribute to food security. And so in 2023, there were workshops for 40 participants on this environmental protection. And many trees have been planted. And the goal is really to support rural food security and a multi-generational approach. And also to establish community nurseries so that you have also the possibility to grow trees and then have a very diverse portfolio of different trees, so to enhance food security. Next slide, please. Another program is the Environmental Health by Inshindo in Zambia. It's a foundation that is also has different lines of action, and one is that it addresses impacts of poverty and environmental degradation. So they launched the Preparation of Social Action Program to integrate environmental health into the community life. And so in 2023, for example, 135 participants were involved, and it's a program to preserve the environment, to foster also government collaboration, improve health and the economy of the communities. I think what I tried to mention also before is that this Planting Hope, it sows both trees, but also the seeds of unity and fostering a culture of environmental responsibility. Because through these environmental endeavors, also because the whole community comes together and is engaged in a very meaningful way, it also are the seeds of social cohesion in a region, of collaboration. You need a lot of patience with the plants and within the community with the different actors in community. So I think you learn beyond environmental awareness and responsibility and also this action component of planting actually the trees. You have also the opportunity to develop as a human person. The health benefits are that reforestation reduces also the risk of diseases linked to AIDS, malaria, and Ebola. All of us know that especially fruit trees, they provide nutrition to us. They are materials for woodwork and other essential resources that enhance local food security. It's very empowering, as I mentioned, especially also for girls and women. And it's a very promising way for community building because it strengthens the social bonds through collective reforestation and urban gardening efforts. Yes, one of our managing directors had the possibility to visit in the last couple of months 2 of these projects, like in Shindoe and Fundaek, and he took some pictures, which I can share now with you. Next slide, please. Yes, I think you see how much joy is also involved in these activities, which is also important, I think, for community building efforts. Next slide, please. Yes, so in the back, I don't know if you see her with the white shirt on the right. So this is the other managing director of TwoWings who was able to participate. Yesterday, we thought that it would be very great to also introduce to you another initiative where Mr. Dr. El-Khatib is very much spearheading this initiative. It's called SEMA Care. So if you can go to the next slide. And so I asked him if it's possible that he can introduce to you this endeavor, because I think it fits very much into the whole setting of this workshop. Mr. El-Khatib is an epidemiologist and very experienced, and maybe he can introduce himself much better than I can do. So I pass now on to the next presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Enayati. Hello, everyone. My name is Ziad El-Khatib. I'm an epidemiologist and also an associate professor in global health. I will dive straight through the presentation so then we can save some time also for any questions. The next slide, please. So today, globally, we have more people living today than any other time in the human history. This picture shows you life expectancy, global life expectancy globally and around the world, but also in every continent. So we can see how the life expectancy did rise significantly during the last century. So this is thanks to the legacy of work that has been done in the past to the advancement of the world and the life expectancy. And it goes, if we want to boil it down, it goes to 3 major global health interventions. The first one is access to clean water. The second is vaccines. And the third is antibiotics and antimicrobial treatment. So, however, so this means that today or in the past, when we have a newborn was born, then let's say in the year 1900, the child will live until age 32. But in year 2021, according to this figure, the life expectancy has more than doubled. So, and the average life expectancy went up to 71 years. But then, of course, there is a social inequality as well. Next slide, please. Yet, global mean temperatures have already increased by 1.1 degrees Celsius since 1900. So with most of the change having occurred in the past 50 years in particular. So today we see more and more the impact of climate change on the nature as well as on people. So for example, we see it when it comes to flooding or drought, extreme weather events, which is also leading to more forced migration. And in addition to this, we also see fires, we see storms, and their impact on the livelihood of different communities around the world. Additionally, we also see that the climate change has experienced, or the climate in general, experience at any location and time, it represents a combination of natural climate variability, and it increases also climate change. So, for example, as greenhouse gases accumulate and lead to increased global temperatures, extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and more severe. Next. So taking this into account, when we have a climate change, this leads in the change of the conditions of different pathogens or microorganisms reservoirs around the world. I will not go through the details of this graph. I'll just explain that globally, 10% of the global carbon emissions are caused by tropical deforestation. So it is estimated that each year, deforestation of tropical forests releases more carbon into Earth's atmosphere than the emissions from the whole transportation sector of the United States. So deforestation leads to climate change as well as the increased risk to the emergence of zoonotic and infectious diseases. So when we say zoonotic diseases, it means that the time when there is any microorganism is going to leave the animal as a host into the human. This is where we call it a zoonotic disease. And this means that the impact of deforestation is beyond the point of just affecting animals. So in a very simple way, deforestation and climate change is becoming also a public health matter as well. So we have, when we see the increase in average temperature in places where they used to known to be cold places, that this means that it leads to the emergence of frozen pathogens, which this could be regarded as a Pandora box that we don't want to go there, because we are revisiting certain diseases that we haven't seen them for many, many years, or we didn't know about them because of the change of this temperature going from cold to warm environment. So today we are up against, as we try to transform our society towards climate justice and sustainability. However, the anthropogenic climate change is not inevitable. So the future state of the environment is not predetermined and can be influenced by our current actions. Next slide, please. So the question today is that how new patterns of action and interaction can best be established both individually and collectively through personal choices, social systems, and governing institutions, and how can we work to mitigate and adapt in terms of strategies. So when it comes to children, they tend to be the weakest link in the impact of climate change. I have been engaged with thinking how we can protect children from different burden of diseases for over a decade now in my career. And I have learned that the best protection you can provide to children is prevention. So here we need to think about mitigation and adaptation for children, because they are really the most vulnerable group in communities, especially during the first 24 months. The first 2 years of children's lives are very, very important because they need to have a good immune system to build it, and also their milestones of development that goes in a relatively really fast way. I personally, I'm a father of a child who is over 3 years old, and I could see how every day counts towards his development. So parents need support as well to be informed on what happens during these critical milestones, as well as how to act and support their children. So this is why here, also I have worked in Africa for almost 18 years. There is a very famous saying that it takes a village to raise a child. And then there are here, who are these protagonists that around the raising the children? There are three protagonists here: the parents, the community, and the institutions. Next slide, please. So the children are vulnerable to infectious diseases. We all know this. And thanks to the vaccines, we have really seen relatively a large number of vaccines that are already available and integrated into the national immunizations programs of countries around the world. Parents are also vulnerable to misinformation. So they lack information about climate change. And evidence shows us that parents experience sadness, feeling of hopelessness, and anxiety when it comes to the future of their children and when they hear about climate change. So parents, they have this feeling of the guilt feeling towards the children and the integrity that is being compromised. The parents, they feel disempowered because of the information complexity and the political uncertainties as well. So when it comes to institutions in the healthcare system or healthcare system in general, they tend to work in a highly specialized way, that this can be perceived under the label of fragmentation, that every department is in charge of certain topic related to health. And to be specialized as a department, that's actually good. And the climate change cannot be resolved without having a unified approach of all stakeholders to get together, because it's a problem of everyone. So therefore, we need to have cooperation, mutual aid, and reciprocity are essential in the support of children, parents, and also the institutions that are part of the same body of this world that we are in. So therefore, this concept of three protagonists came into place, that one stakeholder alone cannot help the children. Then it requires this unified approach. Next, please. So CIMA is an innovative platform that is designed to enhance social equity in vaccination uptake through a unique collaborative model. CIMA makes synergy in the efforts between these three protagonists, the parents, the clinic staff, and the policymakers, to create a comprehensive ecosystem aimed at boosting vaccination rates. So it targets the vaccination appointments reminder system. It has automated reminders. It targets the staff to educate them about vaccination. It also sends education messages for parents about the benefits of vaccines, but also on parenting and about different the milestones of the child age development. So also in terms of learning about the environment and climate, also this is also can be added to it. So in this way, the CIMA it started as a research project, but then we realized that we need to learn how we can help it, because it became a dream how we can protect the children from all sorts of their environment, and to support the parents and the institutions. And therefore, it became a company with the mindset of social service. Next. So this is the history of CIMA, where it started working with the refugees in the Zaatari refugee camp in north of Jordan. Refugees that were mainly coming from south of Syria. And also we have a long project now in northwest of Cameroon, where also, unfortunately, there is a conflict happening or tension. So then the CIMA became very important tool for the Ministry of Health to be able, digital tool to communicate with the parents and to be able to overcome any barriers regarding the tension that is happening. In Rwanda as well, we have a project, and also in Lebanon. finally, last slide. Finally, that this cannot happen without the support and collaboration with different partners and colleagues, and also TwoWings as well has been of support for SEMA. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Enayati, Dr. El-Khatib. Thank you so much. We had like some questions coming in the meantime in the chat, so maybe we can start from answering some of them. But and anyone, if you have questions, just raise your hand as well. We have one question from Winnie Uma. She's working in the coastal region of Kenya, in Mombasa, and due to rising sea levels and extreme weather events, they started a project. And after like floods destroying various infrastructures and crops, they started a project and they are planting mangrove trees in the coastal creek. So they're wondering whether there's collaboration opportunities there. So
thank you so much, Winnie Uma, for your question. Yes, we can stay in contact. I mean, I have to say that the TwoWings Foundation, we have limited resources, and at the moment we have a long-term commitment to Inshindo and Fundaek regarding the trees. But I think it would be wonderful to be in contact, because maybe we know someone else we can bring you in contact with. And it's always, I think, very fruitful to learn from each other. And yeah, I would be happy to be in contact with you.
I think from my point of view, for Friends of Social Business, it could make sense to go in a closer contact and exchange of ideas, because I know Fundaek very well, and also your foundation since a long time. And my feeling is that it is very, very close to the idea of social business. At the end, the people should make their own kind of business. This is the best ground for sustainability, all of the effects of, for example, planting trees. And so I think this could really make a lot of sense, and this would be my offer and my interest, and to bring these two worlds closer together.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, we would very much like to maybe if there is an opportunity later on, then we can consult more in depth what possibilities exist. We thought that it is with these three different initiatives, it's maybe it serves really as an inspiration for others, and I think they are all of them have a very special humanistic approach, and with this SEMA Care, which we also then introduced here, we thought it's very maybe helpful, because this is really it's really, I think, a very nice example of a social business. And whereas the other two are really non-profit foundations, but of course, they're also trying to nurture this entrepreneurial spirit, which I think Mr. Spiegel has also now outlined how important it is, because they also try to build corporations regarding employability and how you can yourself maybe be more a protagonist in food production. So I think they also have some of these lines of actions that they are following.
That's right.
there were a lot of comments on like sharing the presentation. So no worries, we will share all the presentation with all of you. From my side, it was also interesting to see, I mean, like the systemic aspect of it, like, and the connection also with the health, of course, because like when health is involved, people tend to worry a bit more, right? And I think it would be really, like, it's really needed that we highlight how like this connection between deforestation and like, I mean, having the highest impact actually on climate change, and then the connection with health. I think it's really interesting and really important to highlight as well, for like more to involve people because they are aware of the real impact that it has also on themselves personally.
Maybe Ziad, you could share what you have shared with me, because we had recently a brief discussion because he's an epidemiologist, and I asked what are the consequences of deforestation on health and pandemics and all this. And so I think he shared interesting concepts with me. And I agree with you, Maria. I think when we connect also the health aspect, then people are, they see more, I think, the urgency.
Yeah, thank you so much. So in general, like deforestation, I think for many years has been like people think about it's just a problem for the environment, but it's a public health problem on so many different layers. One, obviously, that what I discussed earlier in terms of the temperature increase, but also the different diseases, zoonotic diseases, and then urbanization. There is a link as well. The more we are thinking about urbanization and then to take out trees or to make roads, etc., we see more of an increase of the risk of different diseases. So it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have urbanization. It's just that how to be, and also the mindset of societies, how we should think about it, what type of educational interventions we should think about them as well while doing this urbanization. This is why I also appreciate the modality of TwoWings by working on the mindset, but also working on social action. And at the same time, the more we see urbanization becomes more of a vicious circle, that we see more of an impact of people working. They have to work outside during the day, let's say, that already there is an increase in temperature. So also it's affecting them. So today, the climate change is a public health problem, if you want to put it in one simple sentence, and then how we can work on alignment between the mindset and action towards the same goal, improving public health and climate change. Over.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. El-Khatib. I was reading also, like, there's some more comments from Masika Merezi. I know Masika is working on involving like communities in a specific region from Uganda to create nursery beds, like with and planting trees as well, and empower communities to then like sell fruits and like also like impact their economic activity. So she was also inspired by your presentation. Yes, but we will share the presentation, and I mean in the presentation there was also an email from the TwoWings Foundation, so in case you can be in touch, and we will also connect from our side as Friends of Social Business. Are there any more questions, or do you feel like adding something from your side, Dr. Enayati and Dr. El-Khatib? Otherwise,
I just wanted to add that we are very thankful for this opportunity to have been invited here, and it was a great pleasure for me to be able to share some of our experiences and guiding principles.
Thank you so much also from my side that for this also for this invitation and for the participation. Thank you.
thank you very much. It was a pleasure also from our side. So we will keep in touch, everyone. And I extend my thanks, I think, on behalf of Friends Social Business to Kunftgrunden, to all of you as well who joined today workshops. We see each other again on Wednesday with the second part, and the discussion is going to be focused more on future skills. We will share all the material with everyone. And again, I wish everyone a beautiful day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. 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 Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.